Buenas noches y bienvenidos al 31º programa de la 4ª temporada de Golf sin etiquetas. Llegó la primavera y con ella el cambio de hora, los días largos, luz hasta las 1000, la mejor época del golfista. Y además es que ya estamos en abril, Larry, a 10 días de que empiece el primer Major del año, el Masters de Augusta. Y tú no estás lejos de ahí.
Yo estoy en North Augusta, Gonzalo, en el hotel, tenso como un demonio. Aquí ya se respira, empiezas a ver banderillas, ¿sabes? En las casas todos ponen banderas colgando del Masters. El ambiente ha llegado y yo estoy especialmente nervioso.
No es para menos. Pues te he visto muy relajado al comienzo del programa, así, con la mano así, tirada así.
Sí,
Te veo muy chill, me gusta el modo chill. Es verdad que sé que has tenido un fin de semana de trabajo durísimo con tu pupila y estoy seguro que necesitáis lunes un merecido descanso. Pero bueno, hoy tenemos un programa por delante. Gracias por estar aquí, Larry, por siempre atender tu cita con Golf sin etiquetas. Y hoy tenemos un programa por delante muy divertido, ya no solo por lo acontecido esta semana, que ha sido mucho, probablemente lo mejor, pues esa emotiva victoria de Gary Woodland en Houston. Yo creo que junto con la victoria de Anthony Kim este año, probablemente de lo mejor que le ha pasado al golf en los últimos meses. Y es verdad que, bueno, también una actualidad que ha sido empañada un poco pues con ese accidente de Tiger Woods, ¿no? Que ya no sé cuántos van, no sé cuántos accidentes lleva, creo que son 4, pero bueno, hablaremos de esto y mucho más, pero sobre todo hoy tenemos un invitado que a mí desde luego me apetece muchísimo, y es que lleva el golf en su ADN, pero literalmente, y es que nuestro invitado de hoy es la 3ª generación probablemente de la dinastía más importante en la historia de la enseñanza del golf. Recordemos que su abuelo, Claude Harmon, ganó el Masters en 1948 siendo profesional de Winged Foot, y luego pues su padre Butch Harmon no necesita presentación, uno de los mejores entrenadores de la historia, entrenador de Tiger Woods en sus inicios, con el que ganó 8 Majors. Y luego nuestro invitado de hoy, que es la 3ª generación y entrenador de grandísimos jugadores como Dustin Johnson, Kep Carniel. Tú sabes que nuestro invitado de hoy tiene el gran slam como entrenador. Ha ganado los 4 majors con sus diferentes alumnos. Y eso no lo puede decir todo el mundo.
Joder, eso es un palmarés de nivel extraterrestre. Sí, además de ser un reconocidísimo entrenador, con la lista de jugadores a los que ha llevado o lleva es interminable y de una calidad brutal. Es muy simpático, es muy buena gente y muy generoso, porque estar aquí con nosotros tiene su mérito también.
Sin duda, la verdad es que estar con 2 sinvergüenzas como nosotros, un lunes por la noche o tarde en la costa este americana, pues sí, hay que agradecérselo. Yo creo que tenemos un programa por delante muy divertido. A mí, desde luego, me apetece mucho y yo creo que sin más dilación vamos a dar entrada a nuestro invitado Claude Harmon III. Claude Harmon III. Good afternoon or evening in Florida. How are you, my friend?
You know, my Spanish is somewhat okay, so you didn't say too many bad things about me. So
you do have the Spanish looks, I have to say, Claude.
My mother's parents were from Mexico, so I love. Listen, you guys both know Spain is one of my favorite places on the planet. If I could eat any food and drink any wine for the rest of my life, it would be Spanish food and Spanish wine. And I don't say that just because you guys are here. So thanks for having me. Always great to see you guys, and crazy times in golf. Week out from the Masters. So I think it always seems to me like the golf season starts kind of this week, right? We get ramped up for Augusta, And we got the Augusta Women's Am, which I'll be watching over the weekend, and then I'll head up to Augusta on Sunday night or Sunday morning with DJ.
Sounds like a great plan. I mean, driving through Magnolia Lane with a former champion. I mean, I can't think of any better. I mean, what a way to start a week. It has to be exciting going back to a place where your people has been so successful, and that it must bring some amazing memories.
It does. It's I remember the first time. I think the first time I went to Augusta, my grandfather was still alive. I think it was when Larry Mize chipped in for Greg. What was that, 87? I was a senior in high school, and I didn't really play a lot of golf growing up. I didn't play junior golf or amateur golf and everything, just because when I was, I'll be 57 next month. Golf wasn't cool when I was growing up, and so my dad really didn't push golf on me. But I went to Augusta for the first time, and my grandfather was still alive, and he took me to the champions locker room every morning for breakfast. And, all the greats were there, Arnold Palmer, and I remember Seve was in the champions locker room with the sweater over the shoulder. Still one of the coolest things, I've ever seen. And I think that was really kind of the first time I really understood kind of what my family did and kind of who they were. And I think the way my grandfather was treated by all the greats there, I mean, I kind of knew that, it was something special. There's a great old picture. I think it was 1952 was the first champions dinner. And, it'll come up on social this week, and my grandfather was a part of that. So to be able to go back to Augusta every year, I mean, I've been a lot. I was there in 97 when, my dad was working with Tiger, and got to be a part of that. And my dad's has a rich history of working with players at Augusta and working with Tiger in 97, and then all the championships they've won. And then he worked with Phil, and Phil won there. So when I went for the first time in 2004, I was working with Trevor Immelman. He qualified playing off the European tour, got into the top 50, and that was one of his goals, and it was always a goal of mine as well. And I remember walking on to the members driving range, the old driving range, and I felt like I'd finally done something in my life that lived up to what my family's legacy was, to be there with a player. I mean, you guys know, if you get to play there as a professional and get invited to the tournament, it's the pinnacle, right? But for those of us that aren't players, if you're a caddy, or if you're a coach or an instructor like I am, to get to go there and actually work with a player, it's incredibly special. And then I was working with Brooks Koepka and DJ in 2019 when Tiger won, and I was standing by the scores where they walk in when Tiger walked in and started high-fiving everybody. And, that's something I'll never forget. And I'll never forget Brooks hitting the water on 12 with a chance to win.
You will never.
And then the following year, the COVID year, to be there with DJ and to be there and be a part of his team, and have him, win the Masters, certainly something that, it's one of the highlights of my career.
Dude, Claude, I don't know if when you were in high school, golf was cool or not, but
it wasn't cool. Golf, when I was growing up, guys, I'm 50. I'll be 57 in May. It was when I was growing up. Golf, there was no Tiger Woods, right? Golf was older people. The clothes were strange. The clothes look cool now, but back then, it wasn't popular. There wasn't
Champions locker room with Arnold Palmer, Seve. Yeah. That was fucking cool, man.
Yeah, it was. And I think, Augusta is a very special place. I think because of the history there. I think because it's the only major that we play on the same course every single year. So for the fans and the viewers that watch it on TV, kind of on Sunday, what you're going to get, right? what's going to happen. And I always say to people, if you ever get a chance to go to the tournament, let alone if you ever get a chance to play the golf course, I've never played the golf course, but if you ever get a chance to go as a spectator, even if you just go for one day, for the rest of your life, when you watch it on television, everything that happens will make sense, right? When someone hits it in the back bunker on 12 on Sunday with a one-shot lead, you're thinking, okay, they're really gonna struggle here, right? You know, if they get out of position on 11, they get out of position, they miss the green on 10. So because there's such a great history there, from a viewing standpoint, it's the best. And I think what the Masters does, their attention to detail. I mean, the fact that you can go on the app now and watch every single shot. They started doing that, 3 or 4 years ago. It's just amazing. And then this year, they have a new, I'm sure you'll see it because you're at there, the new player pavilion behind the tournament driving range. That wasn't even there a year ago. It used to be a parking lot. And, they say it's 4 stories. There's a restaurant, there's a gym, so they just do things so well. And it really is, it's a special place. I gotta be honest with you.
It is a very special place indeed, and Claude, the things that you've seen and witnessed on those holy grounds are pretty amazing. It's hard to pick one. I mean, of all the ones you mentioned, it's hard to pick ones. But it's funny that you mentioned that. I mean, golf wasn't cool at the time. You weren't really interested. So when did you decide you wanted to kind of follow the footsteps of your granddad and your dad and become a golf instructor?
I think because I didn't play, my dad really didn't push golf on me, because I think obviously growing up, when your father's a Masters champion and you're trying to play, my dad tried to play, professional golf, played the PGA Tour for a couple of years, still has an official win on the PGA Tour. In the 70s, the PGA Tour isn't obviously what it is today, but they had one round tournaments and he won the BC Open. It's still an official win on the PGA Tour, but I played other sports. I played the big sport that I played the most in high school, and I tried to walk on to my college team was tennis. I mean, tennis was my sport. I mean, to this day, half the Instagram sites I follow are tennis sites. I follow all the players. I follow all the coaches. If I can go to a tennis tournament, I have a ball machine. I love tennis. So that was my sport. And my dad really didn't push it on me. But when I was about 15, 16, my dad is one of 4 brothers. They are all, golf pros. Every summer they did a Harmon family golf school in Akron, Ohio, for a guy that used to work for my grandfather. And I started going up there when I was about 15, 16 years old. And I would set up. My dad used video early on, in that stage. I was still in high school, so it was still, the mid 80s, but he was big into video, right? He had a video camera, he had it on a tripod, and then he had like a Sony Caddy Cam. It was like a pull cart that had a small TV about the size of, my computer now, and you could hook a video camera in. And so he was big into videotaping golf swings. My grandfather evidently was big into that as well. He liked to take pictures and stuff. So in the summertime, I would help set up these golf schools that we did. I'd set up the range, and then I'd run video for my dad. So I really liked the instruction side of golf, the puzzle side of it, right? Because it's a puzzle. You're trying to put all of these puzzles. So my background, I think it's somewhat unique in that most golf instructors, my father played the tour, Pete Cowan played the European Tour, right? Jim McLean, all these other they tried to play. My background was just watching my dad give golf lessons, watching my uncles give golf lessons. And my uncles were all working, my Uncle Craig, who was at Oak Hill for 43 years, where they've had Ryder Cups and where Brooks won the 23 PGA. And he was there for 42 years. He was Jeff Sluman's coach, when Jeff Sluman was a junior golfer, Jeff Sluman went on to win the PGA, right? My dad's middle brother, Dick, who passed away, who lived in Houston, he worked with Curtis Strange, Lanny Watkins, Ben Crenshaw. So, and then my uncle Billy, my dad's youngest brother, caddied for Jay Haas on the PGA Tour for 30 years. Bill Haas is named after my uncle Billy. My uncle Billy's firstborn son is named Jay. So I was always around golf instruction. And so I just watched my dad give golf lessons. And really about that time in the late 80s, early 90s was when my dad started working with tour players. The first tour player he really worked with was Steve Elkington. We were living in Houston at the time. And then through his work with Steve Elkington, he started working with Greg Norman. And then the first day that Tiger Woods came to take a golf lesson from my dad, August 23rd, 1993, he'd just gotten beat, I think, in the quarters of the U.S. Junior at Champions in Houston. And he came over, Earl brought him over, and, you can still find some of those videos online. And I ran the video, and I was in the first golf lesson, Tiger ever took from my dad. So my background was just watching my dad give golf. It's like a little bit like being a chef. I just grew up in the kitchen, right? I just grew up in a kitchen watching a 3 Michelin star chef run a restaurant and cook food. And I don't think I could have the career that I've had, the success that I've had as a non-player with no background in golf, without being around all of those players. I grew up on tour. My mom tells me, my dad was playing the tour when I was born. I think I was on the PGA Tour about 2 weeks after I was born in the back of a station wagon. So, and then basically, I'll be 57 in May. And for the last, I'd say 30 to 40 years of my life, I've just been on tour.
Good. We knew about your father, but the Harmons, you were like a monopoly for in golf instruction. What is the most important thing your father has taught you about coaching elite professional players?
My dad told me something. He told me 2 things that I always think about every single day, and one of them he learned his father told him. My grandfather said, "It's only what you learn after you really think you know everything that really matters," right? And, I lived that, in 2000 and, in 99, 2000, we were in Las Vegas. My dad was teaching Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was winning the Grand Slam. I just really started, we started my dad's academy in 1998. We saw the best players. Tiger was winning everything. I was working with Adam Scott. I was working with Darren Clark. I was working with Justin Leonard, helping all these guys that my dad was teaching. But I didn't really know anything, right? I just kind of knew what my dad told people. So I would just tell people what my dad told people. And listen, let me tell you, it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
Properly, yeah.
But I didn't really know anything, right? And so it wasn't until I moved to Europe in 2002, moved to Europe and was working full-time on the European tour. And I started working. The first player that I really worked with on my own was Trevor Immelman. I met Trevor in Dubai in 2002. You guys remember the Dubai tournament. And even to this day, after Sunday night of Dubai, everybody just goes straight from the golf course. When you finish, you go straight to the bar behind the green, the putting green there at Emirates. And it's one big party. And I don't know why I didn't go and party with everybody else. And we were going to Qatar the next week, and everybody was getting on a flight the following morning. And I have no idea why I didn't go. And I went to the gym, went back to the hotel, stayed in the marina. Remember the hotel that was on the Hilton on the marina when there weren't any hotels, there weren't any high rises in Dubai. The marina had been dug out. And I went into the gym, and Trevor was in the gym, and I knew who he was. I really had followed him as an amateur, and he wasn't playing great. And we went out to dinner that night. And then the following week, I was working with Adam Scott, and we went to Qatar, and Adam won in Qatar, and me and Adam, Trevor, and Charlie Hoffman. Charlie Hoffman was over from the U.S. playing because he just turned pro, and he and Adam played at UNLV together. So the four of us went to dinner every night, and we went to this Mexican restaurant at the hotel in Qatar, and Adam won that week. And then a couple of weeks later, I was in Spain in the Canary Islands, the one that Sergio won.
Cortijo.
Cortijo. There's like a big bull up on the hill, right? Remember that? And
but yeah, he won the Spanish Open there.
Spanish Open, and that week Trevor asked me to watch him hit some golf balls, and he was working with his brother, but he was struggling, and he wasn't doing well. And we went out to dinner, I think, on the Saturday night after working with him all week, and he said, "Hey, if you and I work together, what would the goal be?" And I said, "Well, the goal would be to get you inside the top 50." Because back then in the world rankings, if you got in the top 50, you got into all the stuff in the US, you got into the players, you got in the majors, eventually you got into all the WGCs. And he said, "Hey, let's work together full time." And so the following week was either the following week or 2 weeks later was in the French Open at Golf National. I think he set the course record on the first day, 62 or 63. And Malcolm McKenzie, Trevor had finished. Malcolm McKenzie had a one-shot lead and hit it in the water and somehow got it up and down. And I'll never forget that. And then that was really where my career started. And the other thing that my father told me when I started working with tour players that I'll always remember, and I still remember to this day, is he said, "It's sometimes what you don't say that means everything." Because you can always say something, right? You can always overload the player with information. And, I did that early in my career, with Trevor Immelman. You guys remember Trevor. I mean, the ultimate grinder. I mean, we would get to the golf course. We'd be the first ones on the range. We'd hit balls for 4 hours. We'd hit balls from 6, 7 in the morning until about 10 or 11. Then we'd go play 18 holes, and then they'd kick us off the driving range. And he wanted as much information I could give him, and I gave him as much information. But we broke each other, and so those two things. I mean, I didn't know anything when I moved to Europe. I knew what my dad had told other people. So when I first started working with Trevor, I didn't call my dad. I didn't ask my dad for help because I needed to make some mistakes on my own. And I needed to fail and figure out what I really believed was important for golfers, not what my dad thought or what other people thought. And I say that to young instructors all the time. I'm lucky to have 2 academies, one in Dubai and one in Thailand. And I've got about 15 instructors that work for me, and I'm so lucky to have them on my team. But I tell them all the time, listen, you've got to figure out what makes players good. And you've got to come up with your own ideas. I mean, yes, I'm always going to have mine. But one of the things I always do for the guys that are new to the team is if we hire anybody new, I have them present to me and the team like they're giving a teaching seminar. One, they have to learn how to make a presentation, and I'm gonna judge them on how well the presentation is. But I want to know what they believe makes players good. And so, my dad says this all the time in teaching seminars, and I say it as well. Everything I know about the golf swing, I've learned and taken from other people. I haven't invented anything in the golf swing or in instruction. Everything I've learned from all of the people that I've been lucky enough to meet in my life. And then I've tried to take those ideas and take those concepts and put my own spin. It's a little bit like, I'm sure you guys, all the great Spanish players, Seve, Ollie, right? They've given you a short game lesson at some point, right? And they've told you how they do it. But it's very hard to do it the way they do it. So
I always say, don't even listen to a short game lesson from Jose Maria Olazabal, because it's so hard to do it his way.
But most of my dad's short game stuff that he taught or gave to Tiger, he learned from Greg Norman from the years they worked together. And Greg Norman learned all of that shit from Seve, right? Because Seve and Greg were tight back in the day. So what my dad would do, and Greg played a ton of practice rounds early and back in the day. My dad set up for Tiger to play all of these practice rounds with all of the great players, but he played a lot with Greg. And so Greg would tell him this shot that Seve taught him. And my dad would say, hey, Seve did it like this, or Jose did it like this. And what Tiger would always then do is take it away and go, okay, well, I liked that part of it, but I couldn't feel that part of it. So I've kind of taken a mix of what I learned from them and then put my spin on it. And that's kind of exactly what I've tried to do with instruction, is take everything that I've learned from all of these great instructors. You know, you guys as players, you're lucky to be around on tour. You're around other great players. You play practice rounds with them. You hit balls with them. You play in tournaments with them, and you learn things from playing with great players. And as an instructor over the last 20, 25 years, you know, I get to sit and pick Cameron McCormick's brain, Sean Foley's brains, Randy Smith's brain. And my dad used to always tell me, you know, check your ego at the door, right? You don't know everything. You only know what you know. And so I'll always say to the other guys, you know, I'll sit with Randy Smith and say, hey, Randy, what do you think about this junior golfer that I'm working with? You know, what do you think about their swing and stuff? We've been trying to do this, you know, and I kind of want to hear other opinions because I'm 57. I've been lucky enough to work with two players, Brooks and DJ, that were number one in the world for about 4 years. And I've worked with Ernie Els, Brooks, and DJ. I have a combined 8 majors, including the Grand Slam. The reason I say that is, with all of that, I still have days, guys, where I wake up and feel like I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm constantly trying to keep learning because I don't know everything. So I'll call my guys and send golf swings sometimes to my instructors in Dubai or Thailand, and I'll say, hey, can you take a look at this and with what DJ's doing or when I was working, but can you take a look at this? Maybe you guys can see something I can't, because sometimes you can be so close to it. So yeah. I kind of like that collaborative thing. I like being on a team. I love having people around that I can bounce ideas off. And, you know, I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. You know, I've been doing this a long time. I've been really successful, but I promise you that there are great golf instructors out there that know as much as I do, and the people that are famous in golf instruction, they just haven't gotten lucky, you know. And part of my success is I've been in the right place at the right time, and you know, if I don't go to that, if I go at the Dubai Desert Classic in 2002 and go out, you know, drinking all night with all the caddies and all the other players and stuff, I probably don't meet Trevor Immelman. And that was the catalyst for my career. But what I do always say to the guys that I work with is, when you get a door to open for you, or you are in the right place at the right time, or you get lucky, you got to be ready, right? It's like sitting in the middle of the ocean waiting for the wave to come, and you're waiting for the big one to come. When the big one comes, you damn well better be ready to get up on top of it and ride it. And, you know, I that's something that my dad taught me. Hard work. You know, my dad was very, very hard on me. He was very, very tough on me. His dad was very hard on him. And, you know, my dad has been, you know, he has taught me hard work. He always used to tell me, if I got to work, we opened at 8 and I got to work at 7:30, I was a half hour late.
Yeah, there's definitely no shortcuts when it comes to work, and especially, I mean, and now on professional, in any professional sport, but probably especially golf is becoming. I mean, it's so competitive. What I'm, I mean, with all the list of, I mean, all the players you've seen through the years? I mean, you've been fortunate, of course. You work with the best. You've seen the best. Who's the most talented player you've ever seen?
The most talented player I've ever been around, just from an athlete standpoint, is Dustin. Dustin Johnson is a freak athlete. He can do anything. He's a great skier. There isn't anything athletic-wise that he can't do.
He have been number one in the world in any sport he has chosen.
Yeah, he's a very unique athlete. Tiger is in great shape, but Tiger wasn't a great athlete, right? But DJ's the most talented athlete that I've ever seen, in that he can do anything you ask him to do. He's incredibly flexible. Talent-wise, obviously Tiger Woods, I was lucky enough to be around Tiger for the glory years of, the 93 to 2002, when he and my dad were working together. So I spent an enormous amount of time around him. Greg Norman, I never think that Greg gets the credit he deserves for the talent he had. I think Greg's personality, his persona, the shark, the arrogance, the aura around him, and then the losses that he had, people forget how good he was. And I still, to this day, have never seen anyone warm up like him. And, I'm talking Greg in the day would basically go through the bag, every single club in his bag, from start to finish, from sand wedge to driver, and he would hit every shot. He would hit high draws, he'd hit low draws. He'd hit a high fade, he'd hit a low fade. He'd hit a knockdown with a wedge, he'd hit a high one. And watching him warm up was like watching Picasso paint. It was just breathtaking to watch as a golf instructor. And to see the total 100% command he had over every shot. So Tiger and Greg kind of stick out. But listen, I've spent a lot of time around, Jose Maria when, he's around my dad. Watching what he does from a short game standpoint is unbelievable. I was around Sebi a little bit when my dad was working. I'll never forget, Sebi was working with Mac O'Grady, and this has got to be late 90,
late in his career, yeah.
Yeah, late in his career. And he was working with Sebi and Mac were working at Thunderbird, and Sebi was hitting chip shots. He had a 56-degree wedge. The blade was dead square. He took it back, and he was hitting a high flop shot with a dead square face that went straight up and straight down. And it was just unbelievable. I was standing 2 yards away from him, and he hit one, and he said, and Max said, hit one more and let's go to lunch. And he hit one, and he caught it in his hand and put it in his pocket. And I just went, I honestly, because I went, the fuck did I just watch? It just went like this, and he just put it in his pocket. And somebody standing there said, that's great, do it with your left hand. And he went, left hand? I went like that, put it in his pocket, put the club in the bag, and went to lunch. And I'm like, the hell did I just see? It was like seeing magic. So, yeah, it's just, and when you see those guys, right, and you see the way the old guard played, you realize the equipment obviously has made an enormous change. There was a thing. Did you guys see the thing the other day that about 2 days ago over the weekend, someone posted on Instagram and Twitter, Watson at 13 at Augusta, 213 out, and he hits a 4-wood. Right now, guys are hitting, some guys are going to hit a 7-iron, some guys are going to hit an 8-iron. I guarantee you somebody is going to try and smash 9-iron down there from 219 if they're jacked up. So, the game has changed a lot. I think technology and equipment, but technology and golf instruction. We have so many different ways now to measure everything. We can measure what your body's doing in 3D. We can put you on force plates. We can tell you what your weight shift's doing, ground force reactions. We can use a launch monitor. So I didn't grow up with any of that stuff. And I'm actually really glad I grew up in instruction at a time to where the only thing I really grew up with was a video camera. I still remember coming to the European tour in 2002, and I had a Dell daylight readable laptop that you could use outside, but you plugged a camera in it and all this stuff. And now you just pick up your phone and you can do Sportsbox AI on this, and you can run launch monitors on this and look at all that. But the reason I say that is,
and I'm sure, Claude, that by the time you got to that range in 2002 in Europe and they saw you with the laptop, they must think, oh, there comes a Steve Jobs or something. I mean,
they thought, they were like, dude, what is this? But I'm really glad I grew up in an era without technology, because I learned, I always think of what we do as golf instructors like chefs. We're, trying to come up with ideas and recipes and stuff. So I learned how to cook, and technology helps me do my job better, because technology helps me sell the student what they're doing now, right? If someone's a big slicer, we get them on a launch monitor and I say, listen, your path is out to in, and this is how much you're out to in. I'm not guessing. We know you're out to in. Launch monitors and force plates. But I kind of think of myself as old school and new school, right? I grew up watching, my dad and my uncles and my grandfather teach with no technology. And then, I've embraced every possible technology you can embrace. I'm on the advisory board of the Titleist Performance Institute, the Swing Catalyst Ambassador, right? We have all of the tech. And there are days in a golf lesson where I'll use all of it. And then there's days in a golf lesson where I'll use none of it. And so I think I'm kind of a mix of old school and new school. And I think if you're just in 2026, if you're just going to be an old school guy and not use technology from a golf instruction standpoint, you're probably going to miss something, right? There's probably something you could find. But if you're only going to use technology and just strictly rely on what the numbers are telling you, you're going to miss something as well. So I think the art of what I do and what I try to do is the art of blending coaching, instruction, and all of that. It's a blend, right? You're trying to bring all of these different things in, and that's kind of what I've tried to do.
And Claude, how about, because we talk a lot about the technical parts of the swing, but how about this? How about the mind? Most of the time a coach, especially on tour, and I'm talking when you're coaching amateurs, but on tour, most of the time it's about the mental aspect and kind of a bit of hand holding, or just being there, just being present while he's hitting balls or warming up, giving him the confidence. That's a lot of that on your job as well.
Yeah, no, I think that goes back to what my dad said, right? Sometimes it's what you don't say is really important. And, I think I'm always trying, because I don't come from a golf background, right? Because I didn't play golf or anything. I never think golf is easy, right? That's one thing. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been successful, because I never played at a high level. So if somebody can't fade it, I'm like, well, I can't fade it. So, I know it's tough, right? But I look at kind of what I do almost like an F1 race engineer. If you listen now, and it's great now that F1 has become so popular, but you can listen now to, like on Sky, you can listen just to what the engineers are saying back to the drivers, right? But if you listen to the way that the engineers speak to the drivers, like if you listen to the way Bono speaks to when Lewis was at Mercedes, or the way he's speaking to Kimi now, because he's his race engineer, it's very, very specific, measured. If you listen to the interaction, there's actually an Instagram site where you can listen to all of Max's conversations with his race engineers, and they get angry. The drivers get angry. They're yelling, they're screaming, and the race engineers just talk to them in very, very specific, calm, metered voice. And that's, I think that's part of it, because I always think that if I'm panicking as a coach at a tournament, then the player is going to panic, right? Like if I'm jumpy and nervous. And the best example I can give you of that is when Brooks in 19, when he had a chance to win, when Tiger won, it was really the first time Brooks was the favorite for a major because of everything he'd done up until that point. So he came in as the favorite. Golf Channel was talking him up about being the favorite. And he was really, really jumpy that week. Like practice rounds, he was nervous. I think he was feeling the pressure of being one of the guys that's supposed to win. And he didn't really hit it great in the practice rounds. Driving range wasn't really good. He was hitting a lot of hooks and big blocks. And he went and played the par 3 and then came back to hit some more balls and wasn't hitting it good. And I was basically telling him the same thing I had always told him. We worked on 3 things over the 2 stints that I worked with Brooks for about 12 years. We tried to keep the club in front of him on the backswing, keep the club in front of him on the downswing, make sure the golf ball didn't get too far back in his stance because he liked to fade it, and then really, really worked on his alignment. But it wasn't a lot of technical stuff. And so the golf club was going back too inside, and the downswing was getting a little bit too underneath him, too neutral, and he likes to hit likes to hit fades. So I kept saying, hey, get the club more in front of you, get the club more in front of you. And late Wednesday night, he looked at me and he said, I am fucking tired of hearing that. And I don't want to hear that anymore. And I'm like,
keep the club in front of you.
I'm like, dude, we just won 3 majors basically in a row. You've won 3 of the last 7 majors you played in. You're number 1 in the world. And this is everything that we've worked on for the last 7 years. And so the following day, Thursday, he's warming up. I think he was playing in the afternoon. He was playing in the afternoon. And he is hitting snap hooks. He's hitting high block, weak cuts with the irons. And I'm like, all I want to say is get the club more in front of you. Get the club more in front of you. But come on, man. Don't take it back so inside. Ricky Elliott, his caddy's looking at me going,
Don't.
And so he started hitting drivers, and the new driving range, he snap hooked one and then hit the next one on Washington Road. 100 yards. I mean, you could land a 747 between these 2 drives he hit. And we're up to drivers now. And you guys know you've got to go from the tournament driving range, then you've got to get in a cart, drive over to the clubhouse, and walk through the clubhouse and go putt. So if you're going to putt on the top green by the first tee, you got to go probably 20 minutes before. So we're about 10, 12 minutes from him leaving the driving range. And he hits another kind of toe one and draws. And he's like, I might have to hit draws today. And I'm like, we're about to go play the Masters and you fade it. And now you're going to. And so I said, we had designed a shot for him called the fairway finder. My dad used to call it with Tiger an automatic, where you have to get the golf ball in play. You got a 1-shot lead. What are you going to do? So it was Brooks teed it down low, took it way outside, tried to basically hit as far down on it and take a divot with the driver and hit this little bleed cut. And I said, hey, bro, just hit me a couple fairway finders, which I knew was going to get the backswing to go more outside and him to come down. And I'm inside, I am panicking. Like I am freaking out because I'm like, dude, we're the favorite. Like he's supposed to win this thing. He is playing so good right now, but a confidence issue. And so he hit this fairway finder and hit the most beautiful high bomb nuke fade like he hits every single time. And he looked back at me and I said, hit me a couple more fairway finders. High, beautiful, just hammer cut like he normally does. Wasn't a fairway finder. And I said, okay, tee it back up normal, hit me a couple fairway finders. Again, 5 drives in a row, absolutely perfect, exact high fade shape he wants. I said, hit a couple 5-irons with the fairway finder. Beautiful high fade. Beautiful high fade. We get in the cart. I'm sitting on the back of the cart, so I'm at the back of the cart, the seat that's facing back. He's sitting right behind me. So he's not, I'm facing backwards. He's looking forward. And it's me and Ricky Elliott. We're driving, and he says, are you thinking what I'm thinking? I said, what are you thinking? He goes, it's fairway finders all day. I said, why? And he said, because the club had gotten too inside, and then I can't get back in front of me, and you've been telling me that all week, and I told you I didn't want to hear that anymore. And I was like, fairway finders all day. I think he maybe missed one fairway and 2 greens and shot 66 or 67, and it was the worst he could have shot. And so that is an example, Gonzo, you're talking. Sometimes you have to sometimes get yelled at, right? Sometimes you have to as players, because the one thing that you guys can never do as an individual athlete is you can't fire yourself, right? You can fire the coach, you can fire the caddy, you can yell at everybody else, but the one person you can't fire in it, individual sports are very different than team sports, because in team sports, you can score 3 goals for Barca or Real and the team can lose. But you go home thinking, well, I did my job, right? Or you can play terrible and the team can win. So in golf, as the player, you're the only one. And so what my job is to be a second pair of eyes to the player, right? Because they can't see themselves. And so you tour players, I always say, you guys are like dogs too. You all communicate non-verbally. Like I can tell when these guys walk up if they're in a good, like if you know this as a cat, if you've caddied for somebody, you can tell when they walk out on the putting green if they're in a good mood or a bad mood, right? And if you put the towel in the wrong place, they're going to go. God, you always put the towel in the wrong place. You're like, dude, the towel's in that place every single time, right? So sometimes golfers and tour players, they show up, they didn't sleep well, they're in a bad mood, but they can't yell at themselves. So what they do is they yell at the caddy, they yell at the coach, they've got to yell at somebody. So I'd say 80% of my job some weeks are psychologist. But again, going back to the Formula One analogy, the best case scenario for me as an instructor is to have a week where I don't have to say anything. Where I remember when Brooks won his the third major, the PGA at Bell Reed. He played really good on Sunday at Firestone, the WGC there. And when he got there, he said, bro, I am hitting it as good as I can hit it. I don't need anything this week. Just check my ball position, make sure my alignment's good, make sure my posture's good. That's all I want. And all week, all I said was, posture looks good, ball position looks good, alignment looks good. Hey, move the golf ball up a little bit. We didn't touch the golf swing. He ended up winning the PGA. So
I wish I can bring to this podcast a few moments I've lived with Gonzalo regarding the folding of the umbrella. You could die, you could cry.
There's more interesting things to talk about than Larry.
One of the things, I'll give you a really specific one. Same thing. DJ, he'll have like a rain jacket on that's got a zipper, or a sweater that's got a zipper, right? So I always take the sweater, fold it so it doesn't get creases, because and he's like that too. Like if he's got a white shirt on and it gets a stain on it, he's going to probably go back to the room and change, right? So I know he's really meticulous about how the sweater is folded, but he hates having the zipper up because he wants to be able to take the sweater out of the bag and just put it on without the zipper if it's raining and stuff. And you're like, dude, are we doing this? Come on.
Well, talking about Dustin, what's going on with Dustin? I mean, he's been last couple of years. He's not been Dustin. I mean, for me, as you said, one of the most talented players in the world. I mean, he's got everything. I mean, he's got all the tools in the bag to win again. I mean, he's still young. I mean, in comparison to some others. So, I mean, what's going on with?
Listen, I think that DJ, all the great players, all the great ones, anytime they, like right now, people are talking about, Scotty Scheffler's not playing good. I mean, come on, right? So
tournament.
The great players make it look so easy, and they win with such ease, and they hit such amazing shots that if they have any sort of time where they're not playing good, everybody always says, what's happened? I mean, when I look at the last 5 years with DJ, he won the Masters in 2020, he won the FedEx in 2020, he was number one in the world in 2020. But guys, in 2020, DJ, there were maybe 3 to 5 guys that could hit the golf ball as far as DJ, and none of them were any good and could win majors. Now, 5 years later, there's 500, right? So I think the distance that he used to be able to dominate with, everybody's kind of caught up to that. He was kind of a unicorn and an outlier in that respect. He's not old, but DJ's in his early 40s. He's got 2 young kids that are, under the age of 10, in DJ's home. Like, I worked with DJ today. He was like, okay, we got to start by this point, because he's like, I got to take the kids to school, and then I got to go to the gym. And then I've got to be done by this time, because today he was like, hey, we got to be done by 2:30 because I got to pick the kids up from school. And then, they got a baseball practice, and I'm the coach of the baseball team. So I also think, the live schedule has been great in that it's less tournaments, but the only negative thing about the live schedule is for the older guys, especially for DJ and the guys that have kids, DJ now has 3 or 4 months off. Like, he's never had 3 or 4 months off in his entire life. So, and he's a dad, and he has foundations and businesses and stuff like that. So I think the downtime, and we've talked about this in that, this year, he went to Dubai and played early, and he's like, listen, I want to play more tournaments before the live season starts. But listen, he's still incredibly talented. I mean, he still wants to perform at the highest level. He started working with a new putting coach this year, which is the first time in his career he's really worked with a putting coach named Eric Dietrich, who works with Waco and has worked with Nelly Korda in the past, works with Joseli and Carlos. And so he's putted really, really good this year. He played really good at the end of last year. He had a legit chance to win Valderrama. I mean, Gonzo, you were there. He was in the last group on Sunday. I mean, I think it's out of the 6 tournaments at the end of the year that DJ played, he had a legit chance to win 4 of them. So, winning's hard. The talent level's good. You got to work. You got to put the work in. We've been grinding. We've been probably, working harder in the last couple of years. But I also think, there was an element, after that first live season, by DJ's own admission that, maybe he took his foot off the gas a little bit, right? And I said that to him. I said, listen, let's try and work. Let's try and put in a little bit more work. And he said, listen, bro, I know that I can put in more work. But he said, I'm also going to be honest with you. I'm tired. I've been at the top of the game for 15, 16 years now. It's like every tournament I played in for about 6 years, I was supposed to win it. I was in the hunt to win it. And he's like, that takes a lot out of you mentally, physically. And so, we really have this year, this season, we've been grinding. We've been working, as hard as we've worked. We're trying to get, his golf swing back to, some of the positions that he was in before. But, golf's hard, man. I think if you look at what Justin Rose is doing at his age, right? Rosie's what, 45 now? But the only thing Rosie is doing right now is doing everything he can possibly do to win another major. I mean, that's the goal, right? He was close last year at Augusta. And, you know, you get into this game, what you get out of it. You got to put the work in. And, you know, it's hard. It's also hard to work that hard for that long.
Yeah, it's hard to keep the intensity. And I do remember. I remember last year in Singapore, which is probably one of the warmest places you can play. I mean, I remember you two guys at the back of the range grinding very. Yeah. I mean, the whole day. Yeah. Trying to get the swing together and
listen. I think when you
played off, I mean, he played well at the beginning of the week.
You guys know from the playing side of things, right? When you're playing good, the breaks go your way, right? Right now, DJ is starting to play better, but every like if he misses a shot, like he lost a ball in South Africa on Live on the first hole. He lost it in the middle of the fairway. I think it plugged. It was going to one bounce in the rough and then kick into the fairway. And I think it plugged into, and they never found it. He ends up making double, right? After hitting a really good shot. So he's in that form right now to where he's really, really close, I think, to playing really, really good again. Right now, if he misses a shot, he's missing it in a place that he can't make a par from. And so
hopefully it happens next week. That's changed. Hey, now that you're talking about Liv, I mean, what a start of the year. I mean, it looked like everything was falling into pieces when Brooks and Patrick Reed left, and then we got AK winning again, which was probably the best moment of the year so far, probably including what Gary Woodland is this week in Houston, the South African event, which I mean on TV looked amazing, but you were there. I mean, tell us about it. But it's been quite a start of the year for Liv.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the way the season started, just specifically on the Liv standpoint, I mean, Elvis Smiley winning in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that was really, really impressive golf. I mean, he didn't miss a shot. He had a bunch of good players around him, and then going to Adelaide the following week and seeing, Anthony Kim win. He's on DJ's Liv team now, so I spend a lot of time around him. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in golf and in sports, because I mean, I was in Saudi when he came back, and he walked onto the driving range, and I hadn't seen him since 2008. 2009. It was like seeing a ghost, right? And he walked up, and I was like, "It's fucking AK, man. He's back." I'm like, it's Anthony Kim. Like, he was such a stud, right? I mean, the golf swing, the swag, and all of that. And when he came back, he had been away from the game for so long. He showed up in Saudi with golf clubs he'd got off the internet, right?
Crazy.
He didn't know what a TrackMan was. Right, he hit balls on TrackMan, and he said to Pat Perez, and I was like, "This is unbelievable. This thing can kind of tell me everything that I'm doing." And I'll never forget this. Pat said, "Bro, you're like Tom Hanks in Castaway when he came back." And you know what AK said? He said, "Tom Hanks had it way easier getting off that damn island and getting back to civilization than I had getting back to here." So when he first came back, he hadn't played any golf. And, I was talking to him about this at breakfast a couple of weeks ago. When he came back, and when he came back, he said a couple of weeks in, he would come to the golf course, he'd warm up, he'd play a couple practice rounds, and then he'd hit some balls. Then the tournaments, he'd warm up, and as soon as the tournaments were done, he'd just get in the car and leave, go back to the hotel, hang out with his family. And I remember like 2 weeks in, Pat Perez saying to him, "Bro, you have no idea how good these kids are now." He's like, "When you were playing, yeah, there was the good group of players," but he said, "Now everybody's good. Like everybody is good." He's like, "You're going to play with some players that are young, that are going to hit at 100. David Pooch, I mean, that kid's one of the best young players I've seen in a long time. right? I mean, that kid is a stud. Hits it miles, can hit it high. I mean, so Pat was told him the competition was really, really tough. And, you know, he had a friend caddying for him who didn't know anything about golf. And so really kind of last year, he really started working. He started working on his golf swing, started working on his body. He started grinding, practicing. And if you look at his social media channels now, you know, all he does is practice, right? But you could kind of see him figuring it out. You know, I think he went out in the off season. I sent him, DJ and I went to the Titleist Performance Institute in November out at Oceanside. And then we went to the Scotty Cameron putter studio, and, you know, they had, you know, they've got the glass cases with all the old guys' putters. And there was one signed by AK. And I sent him a picture of it. He's like, I need to get back out there. So he went back out there. And so we played with him here in Jupiter the day he was driving to go to the Live Promotions, their qualifying school. And he hit it really good. And I said to him, I said, bro, your golf swing's in a good place. He said, I'm starting to be able to play golf again and not have to constantly think about my golf swing. And I think what he was saying was he was able now to go out in rounds and just play, not think swing thoughts, technique, what his golf swing was doing. But also I think he knew he had put in the work. He was grinding. I think he's been doing some work with Matt Killen, who worked with Justin Thomas early on in his career, which I think has really helped. And, you know, I think getting through the Live Promotions, qualifying, so then nobody could say, hey, this was a gift. Because, listen, there were a lot of people that thought that it was a publicity stunt, shouldn't be out there and stuff. And I didn't really know AK that well on tour. I knew him to say hi to him. But when he came back, he knew Pat Perez, he knew Ian Poulter, he knew Stenson, he knew Westwood. That's Sergio. Really Sergio, yeah, but that's about it. Like the first year, I remember we were at Doral playing a practice round with him. He was playing a practice round with DJ, and we were talking about when Brooks won back-to-back U.S. Opens, and AK goes, Brooks won back-to-back U.S. Opens? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, really?
He was in the hole. He was in the hole.
Yeah. And I go, and DJ won the Masters too. And he goes, really? Like he had no clue. So he was away from the game for so long, and the game had changed so much. But I just saw the way that he was working. And when Patrick Reed decided to walk away from Live and leave the Four Aces, you know, as a team, they were really struggling. They were scrambling to figure out who they were going to get. And they were talking to a bunch of guys on the PGA Tour, and some guys were interested. And I said to DJ's Live GM, Chris Rossalson, who's a good friend of mine, I've known Chris for 20 some odd years. I said, listen, take one of the guys in Saudi, see how AK plays. Talk to him, see how he plays. And I said, I think it'd be a great story. I think if you gave AK a home, you know, DJ is kind of a big brother, you know. Like I said, I didn't really know AK that well, but I've tried to help him as much as I can. You know, he's practiced at my place in Dubai. When I was at my academy in Dubai in November, he was playing. He was there every single day, grinding all day, every day. So you could kind of see it coming. And I kind of said to Chris, give him a home. I think he'll be really good on the Four Aces and stuff. And then he played. I saw him Saturday night in Adelaide, and he was like, bro, I cannot hit it any better. I'm about to break my putter. I'm probably going to put a new putter in the bag tomorrow, because he said, I can't putt any worse. He said, I'm putting like a blind man. And he started the round 5 back. And I thought it was really interesting on the first hole in Adelaide's kind of a dog leg, right to left. You miss the fairway, you're dead. And he kind of hit a 5-iron, and he hit a bunch of irons early. and he's 5 back of Rahm and Bryson playing in the same group. And he birdied 12, which was their party hole, the par 3, birdie to tie for the lead, I think, or tie Rahm, or maybe it was the next hole, a par 5, but he ties for the lead. Right, so he's birdied 2 in a row, and he's fist pumping and everything like that. And I said to the guys there from the 4 Aces, I said, it was a par 3, pin was back left, and I said, you watch. He's going to flag this thing to 10 feet, make it, and then he's going to birdie every hole coming down the stretch. And he birdied 14, and then he birdied 15, and then he parred 16, and then he birdied 17. And it reminded me, guys, a lot of when, but maybe a decade ago, sometime in the last 10 years, Harrington beat Daniel Berger in a playoff here at the what used to be the Honda.
The Honda.
Yeah, it was a Monday finish, too. And Harrington, 3-time major champion, multiple winner, Europe, Ryder Cup hero, prolific winner his entire career. And Todd Lewis asked him after the interview, are you surprised you were able to win again? He said, absolutely not. I never forgot how to win. I could just never get myself into this position. I was playing bad on Thursday or playing bad on Friday or being in the hunt on Saturday and shooting 75 or having about. So he said, I never was in this position again, but you put me in this position again. I know how to win again. Tiger, 2019. Once he got a chance to win on Sunday, everybody else fucked it up.
You can tell. I mean, as soon as Francesco hit it in the water on 12, you could you could see all of a sudden his eyes kind of change. And
that's the player AK was. AK had a chip on his shoulder, right? You remember, he had the belt, he had the swag, right? There were stories about him going out and partying. There were stories about him firing his coaches and his caddies, but he had something, right? And Dr. Ara Sapaya, who's works with all of the players, he was on the Golf Channel for a long time, but he's kind of like the guy, Liv's doctor. When he birdied 12, he looked at me and he said, that's who he used to be. He said, he's going to make a run. And to do that, and with everything that he went through, with the addiction issues and stuff, I thought the most amazing thing he said was having my daughter realize I was being able to see that I'm just not an addict and a bum. Tiger said that when he won again in 19. For Sam and Charlie to be able to see him win a major and know what it was. Right? When Tiger was winning all his majors, his kids were young. They didn't know what he was doing. So for Sam and Charlie to be there when Tiger won in 19, and then for AK's daughter Bella to win, and it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I was standing next to Sergio when he was walking up the 18th hole. The amount of players and caddies that came out to watch that. But Sergio came out to watch it, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right? He stood next to me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, "It's fucking unbelievable." And then when he won, and I saw him afterwards, we were in the player lounge. I said, "You're just playing golf again." And he's like, "I've done the work. I know where my golf swing is now. I've put the work in." And, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins again this year. I really wouldn't. And I think that, it's a great story. I think it's great for golf. I think we need more with all of the drama between Liv and the PGA Tour and all the stuff that everybody's talked about for the last 5 years. I think we need feel-good stories. I think AK is a great feel-good story. I think what Gary Woodland did yesterday for G-Dub to come back from, they posted pictures on social today. There's a picture of him sitting on his couch with shaved head with stitches from basically ear to ear. And, my dad worked with Gary for a long time. I worked with Gary for a long time. We've played so many practice rounds with Gary Woodland. DJ has played. I remember in 2020, we pretty much played every practice round with Gary Woodland. When DJ won the FedEx, won the Masters, and went on his run, we played every major practice round with him. His caddy Butchie would throw balls, and they would have a chip off on every hole. So I always remember 2020, the DJ, year. G-Dub was a big part of that. I think he really helped us. I think he helped DJ that year, because they hit at a similar distance. They're both really competitive. And we played an enormous amount of practice. Well, we played practice rounds with G-Dub at the Masters. We played practice rounds with him at the US Open. So, I think we need feel-good stories. I think it's too easy. I am not one of these people, guys, that thinks golf is in a bad place. I really don't. I think if you look at, from a player standpoint, if you look at the players we have in professional golf, regardless of which tour they play on, I think if you look at the women's game, if you look at the men's game, if you look at amateur golf right now, if you look at college golf in America, I think the game is in a good place. I think we have some unbelievable players. I think we have some unbelievable talent. I think what Scottie Scheffler's doing is unbelievable. I think that there is a group of really good young players on LIV, on DP, in Asia, on the PGA Tour, on the Korn Ferry Tour. There's a great crop of good young female golfers. I mean, the Augusta Women's Am this year, you're going to see girls that will be playing on tour in 2-3 years. And I just think it's too easy to just say golf is in a bad place. Because I see some great golf, I see some great tournaments, and I see some great stories happening in the professional game. What's happening off the course, that's for other people to figure out, right? Our job as people involved in professional golf is professional golf, right? That's what it is. It's the sport. The governing bodies and the tours and everybody else, they're the ones that have to figure that out. It's not the players and the people on the player side that's got to figure that out. So I don't think the sky is falling. I like what I'm seeing. I like the golf that I'm watching. Do I think it would be cool to see all these players play together? Sure, but Gonzo, you know this. 4 times a year, the best players in the world got together, and 4 times a year at the WGCs, the best players got together. Sometimes the best players, some of the best players in the world showed up in Los Angeles at Riviera at the beginning of the year. Honda was kind of always the one where a bunch of the big European guys came over. You had a bunch of guys in the top 50. But this myth that all the best players played together every single week, it didn't happen.
It never did. I agree.
It never happened. Memorial had happened. Bay Hill had happened. Honda had happened. Riviera had happened.
Players.
The players, but other than that, on the PGA Tour, other than the FedEx and Memphis, the WGCs and the majors.
I agree. Well, we're finally seeing them together next week at the Masters. Who's your favorite, Claude? If you had to pick one,
I think help us win some money.
You got to think that Scottie Scheffler's going to play well. You've got to think that Rory's going to play well. If John Rahm's if John Rahm isn't in the top 3 in the world, then I don't know what is. I mean, I said this to John. I said this to his caddy, Adam Hayes. I said this to his agent, Jeff Koski. He's easily one of the best ball strikers I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them. And I don't know how he doesn't win every week. I really don't, because that's how good he is. If you look at all of the data, the guys, Bryson, you would think would play well. Is this the year that Tommy Fleetwood really plays well deep into a major championship? You would think, given what he did at the FedEx, I think he's figured out how to win. I think he's figured out how to perform on a big stage. I think that was really important. I think winning in America was really important. I think the way he played in the Ryder Cup, you would think he would play well. Do some of these new guys on the PGA Tour?
Shinnecock is going to be Tommy's place this year. That's my feel with Tommy. I think he's going to perform at the U.S. Open.
Listen, the Masters.
I have high expectations on Cameron Young. Let me tell you, I think Cameron.
Listen,
Young, he's right
playing.
That last year. That was a breakthrough as well.
Listen, the Masters will always throw up someone deep on Sunday that isn't technically supposed to be there, right? It does it every single year. There is somebody in the last 3 groups on Sunday that really isn't a superstar, that really isn't a household name, that you don't expect to be there. And I think that will happen again. A lot of it will depend on the weather. A lot of it will depend on, you can hit really good shots there and get bad breaks and stuff like that. But I do think that out of all the majors at Augusta, the cream normally does kind of rise to the top. And, if there's in all of sports, the back nine on Sunday at Augusta, I think it ranks up there with other great sporting events because you just know what's going to happen, right? There's not a big enough lead to take to the back nine. And, it is a very special place. And talking to some of the guys that have been there, Victor Hovland practices at my course. Vic was just up there playing with Annika Sorenstam. He said there've been a couple of subtle changes. They've made a little subtle change at the front of 11. Sergio told me that. Benji, his caddy, used to caddy at Augusta, told me there's been a little front left. There's been a little subtle change. When the hurricane blew through, they lost a bunch of trees. They lost trees on 15 behind the green. Those are back. They lost a bunch of trees around 16, the par 3. They've planted those back. So it's a special place. I always, when you get there, you're always the way they run the tournament. It's an invitational as a player. The way they run the tournament, you always feel like you are on their turf, right? The Masters runs the golf tournament in a very specific way. No phones. As coaches, we're not allowed inside the ropes. So you always have that feeling when you're there that you are on their turf. But when you are there, it's always, you just look around at the place, the history, and it's special. And
the Harmon name will always be there, engraved there as a.
My grandfather. One of the things that, for the listeners that you don't know, the Champions locker room is very, very small, and it's been extended. It's been made bigger, but it used to be. It had a place for about 3 or 4 tables of 4. And so the lockers, there's no room in there for lockers. So everybody has to double up. So you have to, as a champion, you have to share a locker with someone else. And even when you die, your name is still on the locker. So my grandfather, who won there in 1948, he still shares a locker with Tom Watson. So Tom Watson and my grandfather have a locker, and
that's a pretty cool partner to have.
It is.
I'm talking about Tom Watson.
Yeah. He took a 10-shot lead to the back nine in 1948, hit it in the water on 13 and 15 and still won by 5. On Sunday, he was playing with Byron Nelson, and on 6, 7, and 8, he went birdie, birdie, eagle.
Wow.
Which is like, if you go 4 under on that stretch, he's one of the few that's made back-to-back hole-in-ones in the par 3. And the famous story of the Hogan story, because they were best friends. Ben Hogan and my grandfather were best friends before every major that Ben Hogan played. He would either go to Seminole, where my grandfather was the head pro in the winter, or in the summer to Winged Foot and spend a month playing with him. So they played all their practice rounds together, and they were paired together. I can't remember what year it was, but at 12, my grandfather made a hole-in-one in the tournament, and Ben made birdie, and they get to the 13th tee, and Ben's keeping my grandfather's card, and he says, "Claude, what'd you have on that hole?" And he said, "Ben, I had a 1." And Hogan looked at him. He said, "I had a 2. I can't remember the last time I birdied this hole. I never make birdie here."
I love it. I love it. Hogan being Hogan. Hey, Claude, you said the golf is in a good place. What it's in a better place now is this podcast after having you. What a treat this has been. My goodness. I can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute treat for our listeners. I mean, we could be talking here golf with you for hours.
Anytime.
Just for our listeners, you have to listen to Claude's podcast, which is, you guys know it, but I'm just going to remind it. Son of a Butch, probably the
Son
best
of a Butch.
best name ever for a podcast.
Darren Clark's there was a big guy. I don't know. You probably remember him. Darren had this big his name was John. Big John, they called him. And he was like Darren's minder. He's his trainer, but he was this big guy. And one time I was like 2002, I was working with Darren. I walked up on the driving range. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And Darren said, "Claude, good morning." And John looked at me and he said, "Son of a Butch." So he gave me that nickname, and it's always stuck. Listen, guys, I love being able to talk to you guys. Golf is something that's a huge part of our lives. And, I'm incredibly passionate about what I do. And, we are so lucky that we have been able to have a career in golf, to be able to make a living doing, Gonzo, for you as a player and all the things you're doing now. And I just think we're lucky. And I think golf is something that is important to a lot of people. And, it's a special game. And, I'm incredibly lucky to be able to work with the players that I work with and do the stuff that I do, and to be able to talk to you guys. So anytime you guys want me back, you let me know.
Well, we'll
you can pay me in wine from Ribera del Duero. That's what you can pay.
We don't have to pay you by the word, because all the words you've said, that's going to cost me a lot of money, because there was a lot of talking, but it was a lot of fun as well. Claude, thank you very much, and best of luck next week at the Masters with your boys.
And good luck at the Annual with the girl. She's from Stanford.
Yeah, Paula. Yeah,
Paula. She's going to Stanford.
She's good. She's good. She's got the look. She's got the brain. She's got everything. She's a Spanish, of course.
And she's got Larry. What do you expect?
That's the only downside. You can't have it all.
Great to talk to you guys.
Claude, it was a treat.
Thanks,
Thank you very much. All the best, my friend. Thank
you. See you soon.
Yeah.
Well, Larry, qué disparate. Qué gozada hablar con Claude de golf, sus historias, anécdotas, jugadores, lo que ha vivido, la historia. Es menuda saga, una familia de jugones, de entrenadores y de todo. La verdad es que ha sido un auténtico lujo, y desde luego, sobre todo, ya nos ha puesto, como quien dice, la guinda, ¿sabes? Ya hablando del máster, y es que no queda nada, está a la vuelta de la esquina.
La miel en los labios. Todos conocemos, obviamente, a Butch, su padre. Los más cafeteros podían conocer a Claude the First, al abuelo que ganó el Masters. Pero ojo con los tíos, porque
yo los tenía en el radar.
Monopolizaban la instrucción del golf. O sea, espectacular.
Sí, Hugo León siempre me hablaba del hermano de Butch, que por lo visto es un fuera de serie, que está también ahí en Florida y es otro profesorazo. No, desde luego es una familia de auténticos conocedores del deporte, como has podido observar. Es verdad que ha sido tan largo que nos hemos quedado con poco, pero hay cosas que no podemos dejar de tocar, Larry, empezando por tu pupilo, Eugenio, que estuvo cerquísima. Te voy a decir, llevaba mucho tiempo yo sin ver golf por la tele, y he de decir que este fin de semana me he tragado sábado y domingo íntegros, y y me quito el sombrero cómo juega tu chico. Es verdad que es un estrés verle con sus manías y sus retuerzos, pero de Tía Green es una auténtica máquina, pateó bastante bien y bueno, una pena ese final que desde luego pues que nos dejó con un sabor pues amargo, ¿no? De una semana que hubiera sido redonda en un campo en el que está claro que le gusta y donde se luce, porque donde todos los demás se encogen, este se viene arriba.
Así es. Yo he dormido poco este fin de semana aquí en Estados Unidos. Lo tenía que ver a las 2, 3 de la mañana. Pero bueno, muy orgulloso primero de la manera que pateó los primeros 3 días. Luego de la manera que mantuvo la compostura el último día con todo lo que se le vino encima. He leído muchas cosas de la debacle de Chacarra, de que he leído un montón de cosas, pero primero hay que conocer el campo. Creo que hay pocos campos más incómodos para mantener un liderato y luego hay que tener muy en cuenta conociendo el campo. Yo creo que lo que hizo Alex Fitzpatrick es
Brutal.
de los performances más bestiales down the stretch que se puedan haber hecho en un torneo. O sea,
el parcial de 8 birdies que hacen esos 12 hoyos, del 6 al 17, es absolutamente galáctico. El recital de Pat, obviamente de juego también, pero el recital de Pat de esos 12 hoyos fue apoteósico. Y es verdad que yo creo la gente, yo, fíjate, yo sobre todo tenía curiosidad, o sea, obviamente quería ver a Eugenio ganando, pero sobre todo tenía mucha curiosidad en ver el campo, porque es verdad que había oído hablar mucho de él, pero nunca me había molestado en verlo detenidamente por la tele. Y la locura de greens, o sea, la angostura de las calles, o sea, era un campo que solamente verlo ya a mí me producía malestar físico y emocional. Y el recital de cómo jugaron los últimos hoyos, a excepción de ese tramo de 15, 16 y 17 para Eugenio, el resto fue una auténtica gozada.
Mira, yo califico lo que hizo Fitzpatrick, para mí es simplemente imposible. O sea, hacer 8 birdies en los 12 hoyos esos es realmente imposible. Pero luego, chico, además de que jugó impresionante, además de que pateó impresionante, cuando tú tienes un liderato muy grande y te lo van recortando y encima él sigue haciendo birdies, lo que hace Eugenio para mí estuvo a un nivel muy alto. O sea, en el hoyo 15, si le vuela un metro más la bola, la tiene para Verdi en lugar de luego tener un approach imposible. En el hoyo 16 pega un golpe detrás de Alex, pega un golpe sublime, un par 3 que mide 220 yardas. Con agua a la derecha, es imposible. Es que ese campo es realmente imposible. Y luego en el 17 pues te la tira, le sale fuerte a Chacarra y a Fitzpatrick le sale fuerte y en lugar de irse por detrás le coge la cuestecita y vuelve al hoyo. Al final tenía que ser para Fitzpatrick, chapó por él porque realmente lo que hizo fue de un nivel elevadísimo. Y a Eugenio se le escapó. Yo creo que Eugenio tiene que aprender a tener un puntito más de serenidad en esos momentos, pero ya son 2 torneos desde noviembre en los que ha salido líder al último día y acabará cayendo. Yo siempre lo digo, para mí Eugenio de Tía Green es el mejor, le falta esa serenidad con el pad. Y bueno, muy contento porque es un buen torneo. Obviamente no es el desenlace que nos hubiese gustado, pero las cosas van en buen camino y yo estoy encantado.
Una pena porque es verdad que una victoria pues se metía en el PGA, empezaban a pasar cosas divertidas. Es verdad que ha pegado un salto brutal tanto en el DP como en el ranking mundial. Pero bueno, es verdad que bueno, podía haber pasado, pues ha estado muy cerca de esa victoria que desde luego la venía rondando pues desde el principio de la semana, porque desde el principio de la semana ha estado jugando bien. En cuanto a la paciencia, puedo estar de acuerdo. Yo creo que a lo mejor ese pad del 16, no sé si ahí cuando vio que Fitzpatrick no mete ese pad, se le pasa justo por el borde abajo, que tiene un pad impecable. Pero hay un momento ahí que yo creo que yo creo, no sé si se da cuenta que es que a 2 golpes a falta de de 2 hoyos en ese campo no es nada. O sea, es que hay un giro de 2 golpes te puede pasar en un hoyo.
Hay un tema para mí dificilísimo, que es mantenerte en el presente. Cuando tú has estado jugando con un liderato entre 3 y 5 golpes prácticamente todo el torneo y todo el día del domingo,
Sí,
cuando de repente le hace así, le pasa, él no tiene ese momento de estar en el presente y de, bueno, o en ese momento no lo tiene o hace falta todavía estar más sólido ahí. Yo creo que todos son buenas noticias. Obviamente escuece muchísimo no ganar ese torneo, pero bueno, a mí no me cabe la menor duda de que volveremos a estar muy pronto ahí recogiendo trofeos. Veremos.
Voy hablando con Manolo Barrionuevo, el caddy de Rafa Cabrera, que he comido con él aquí en Madrid. Me ha dicho que ha jugado varias vueltas de práctica, con Eugenio y que de Tía Green es insuperable. Dice, de Tía Green es de lo mejor de lo mejor. Y luego que con el pad, por lo visto creo que, corrígeme si me mojo, creo que viaja con una bolsa de pads. O sea, viaja con una segunda bolsa llena de pads.
Sí,
Manolo.
yo es una cosa que yo creo que él ahora estrenó un pad en el torneo de Puerto Rico, que la cabeza es mucho más pesada, y se encuentra muy cómodo con él y lo viene usando desde entonces, que es la primera vez que le veo jugar 3 torneos seguidos con el mismo pad. Yo creo que es un tema que él tiene que... Estamos buscando un muy buen fitter de pad para que le diga exactamente lo que tiene que jugar, porque eso es un problema que tiene él. O sea, él sí, no sé, debe llevar 12 o no sé, 10 o 12 pads, o 8 o 9, no sé, un montón de pads en otro cover que lleva. Y sí, para mí es un tema que es una debilidad suya, el siempre buscar la razón fuera de lo que es su propio golpeo. Pero es verdad que él siempre me dice, no, es que yo no llevo lo que necesito. Y ahora parece que ha encontrado esto que funciona mejor y que él se siente más cómodo. Yo tengo la esperanza de que siga usando ese pad mucho tiempo, porque realmente lo que es importante es construir dentro de un mismo núcleo y tener la misma herramienta para mí es muy importante. De hecho, los mejores pateadores del mundo nunca cambiaban el pad. O sea, no solo hablo de Tiger, pero hablo de Brad Faxon y hablo de los mejores. Brand Snedeker siempre había llevado el Rossi ese.
Hablas de mí también.
De ti no, porque tú también eras cambiador fuerte. Mi hermano cambia de pad una vez cada 2 años, que es un gran pateador.
Yo llevo el mismo desde el 2011. No sé
Sí,
cómo
pero
dices.
tú, en tu momento yo te había visto,
Antes sí, pero desde 2011 firme con el mismo. Oye, Alex,
Anyway, muy contento con la semana y
sí,
el
hombre,
desenlace sí, una mera anécdota.
es una semana positiva, sin duda alguna, hay que quedarse con eso. Oye, y chapó también, como siempre, o sea, para Alex Fitzpatrick, es su primera victoria y cómo lo ha conseguido, o sea, de qué forma absolutamente brutal. Por cierto, son los cuartos, la cuarta saga de hermanos que ganan en el DP World. ¿Sabrías decirme quiénes son los otros? Perdón, se convierte en los quintos. ¿Sabes quiénes son los otros 4 que lo han conseguido? Parejas de hermanos que han ganado en el DP World.
Hogar, Molinari.
Bien. Españoles, te lo dejo ahí, españoles. Los otros 2 son españoles. Yo te doy muchas pistas.
Los otros 2, de Miguel quizá, o algo así, ¿no?
Ballesteros, Manolo y Sebe.
Claro, Manolo, sí.
Y Garrido, Germán y Antonio.
Esa no lo hubiese adivinado nunca.
Y el sexto, ya te digo yo que van a ser también españoles, que serán los Elvira. Ahí lo dejo cuando gane Manolín. Pero
sí, porque los Larrazábal yo ya no llego.
Bueno, nunca digas nunca. Tú has ganado en la bolsa T. En la bolsa también cuenta. ¿Has ganado tú de European Tournament de Cádiz, no? Ah, tampoco.
Yo de Cádiz no.
No, pensé que sí. Bueno, pues ocurrirá. Buena semana de los españoles en general. Segundo puesto de Eugenio. Cuasi top 10 de Ayora, puesto 11. Puesto 13 para Kim Vidal y top 20 para Campillo, que sigue allí en esos puestos de PGA a través de ese pequeño ranking del Asian Swing, con lo cual yo creo que son buen balance general de la semana en India. Y sobre todo no ha habido bajas, no sabemos de españoles que se hayan quedado abrazados al retrete toda la noche, que suele ser habitual cuando uno va por esas tierras. Pero bueno, eso es lo referente al DP World. Y luego, por supuesto, hemos tenido en el PGA Tour la victoria emocionantísima. O sea, si ayer estabas viendo, o si has visto las imágenes esta mañana repetidas de Gary Woodland ganando y no has derramado una lágrima, es que no tienes corazón. Porque desde luego lo que ha conseguido el jugador de Kansas es increíble. Arrasó de principio a fin, ganó por 5 golpes el Texas Children's Houston Open. Y recordemos que es que hace 2 años y medio le hicieron una operación donde le tuvieron que quitar un tumor del cerebro, y hace apenas 20 días, la semana del Players, pues en una entrevista con Rex Hogarth se abría contando que, bueno, anunciando, ya lo hablamos en este programa, que padecía lo que llaman el post-traumatic stress disorder, que en español sería estrés postraumático, ¿no? Y que se agobia mucho cuando la gente se acerca y que lloraba por el campo y que lo estaba pasando mal, y a pesar de que ir con esa sonrisa y todo el mundo diciéndole que bien que estés de vuelta, él no se encontraba y bueno, y lo soltó todo hace 2 semanas y desde luego funcionó porque qué recital de juego, primera victoria desde que ganara el US Open en Pebble Beach en 2019.
Fue espectacular. Yo posteé, ¿no? Que me hizo recordar un poco a las declaraciones de Scottie Scheffler de que ganar al final lo disfrutabas 2 o 3 minutos, pero enseguida tenías que volver a estar ahí, que la euforia de la victoria solo duraba 2 o 3 minutos. A mí me parece que la euforia de la victoria de Gary Woodland no sé cuándo acabará, pero realmente fue bonito de ver. Yo no soy un jugador con el que haya conectado excesivamente nunca en mi vida, pero realmente su historia es dura. La victoria fue bonita. Creo que no hay nadie en el mundo del golf que nos haya alegrado sobremanera por ella. De hecho, pues no sé, los contenders, ¿no? Quizás está Adam Scott por allá, Jason Day, todos me podían apetecer más, pero Gary Woodland, la verdad que ole sus huevos y que la historia es bonita.
La historia es brutal. Yo tuve tiempo yo compartí tiempo con él porque hubo una época que se vino a vivir a Miami. Tenía su preparador físico ahí, entonces una época se vino y de hecho vino a cenar a casa una vez que le invité, y es que no hay un tío, no puede ser más simpático, más normal. Aparte de cuando hablamos de atleta, antes que decía Claude que Dustin Johnson era uno de los mejores atletas que había visto nunca, recordemos que Gary Woodland entró en la universidad con una beca de baloncesto, era jugador de baloncesto y ya acabó convirtiéndose, bueno, pues en ganador de Major de golf, ni anillo de la NBA ni leches. Y recordemos que luego tuvo una pareja de mellizos, uno nació con problemas también, recuerdo luego la operación esta de cerebro que contaba en el documental de Netflix, que les escribió unas cartas a sus hijos despidiéndose porque no sabía cuando entraba en el quirófano. Imagínate la sensación de sentarte a una mesa a escribirle una carta a tus hijos por si no sales de esa mesa de operaciones. O sea, a mí lo que ha vivido y lo que está viviendo, porque esto no deja de ser, como dice, bueno, pues sí, una alegría en esa travesía que tiene en su día a día con el estrés postraumático, pero ver que le pasan cosas buenas a gente buena, yo desde luego me alegro tremendamente.
Así es. La verdad que la historia ha sido bonita, ver el desenlace y las reacciones de la gente, pues ha estado, la verdad, bastante especial.
Oye, en el LPGA hemos tenido como un déjà vu de la semana anterior. Ha vuelto a ganar Hee-Jo Kim por segunda semana consecutiva, a Nelly Korda por segunda semana consecutiva. Carla Tejero ha vuelto a jugar bien, ha pasado el corte y yo creo que se va a meter en el arranco de la semana que viene, y Julia López ha jugado mejor, acabó la 15ª y mejor española, pero ha sido un absoluto déjà vu. Primera vez en la historia que una jugadora hace 2 vueltas de 61 en el mismo torneo, la gran Hee-Jo Kim, hay que dar.
Sobre todo, Gonzalo, es que ha acabado el viernes Nelly Corda era líder sólida, tranquila, jugando un golf de alto standing y la verdad que luego al fin de semana te llegan, te hacen 6-1, 6-1, pues es un poco como lo de Fitzpatrick con Chacarra. ¿Qué vas a hacer? Pues le das la enhorabuena y coges ese segundo puesto pues como lo que es.
Thank you very much. El que no ha tenido su mejor fin de semana ha sido nuestro amigo Tiger Woods, alias el Cuco. El otro día vi Torrentes, tú no, Cuco, que te pones muy nervioso, pues igual. Cuarto accidente de coche. O incidente al volante. Vamos a ver
Se me ha olvidado comentarle a Claude que ya que tienen buena relación con él, oye, no nos llega para un chofer, o sea, que contrate un driver que lo llegue para arriba y para abajo, ¿no? Que nos deje de sustos.
Ya no es sustos, Larry, es que ya no es los sustos que nos da a nosotros, es que un día le va a dar un susto a alguien. Un día una mierda de estas, pues pasas por encima a un niño. Es que esa es la tragedia. Pero sobre todo la tragedia ya no es el accidente en sí, sino que parece, y todo indica, que, bueno, sabes que fue arrestado por consumir por conducir lo que presuntamente bajo los efectos, ahí lo dejan bajo los efectos ya sea de alcohol o de drogas. En el de alcohol dio 0,0, pero todo indicaba que estaba ido, de acuerdo al jefe de policía que hizo el anuncio. De hecho, se negó a hacer el test de orina donde se hubiera visto exactamente qué es lo que había tomado. Y es que no es la primera vez, es que ya pasó en 2009 cuando se choca contra la boca de incendios. Volvió a pasar en el 2017 cuando se lo encontraron dormido al volante. En el 2021, cuando tuvo el gran accidente que se cayó por el barranco, pues también había un bote de pastillas vacío en el coche. O sea, no sé, desde luego yo creo que es un tema muy delicado, que obviamente que no es un plato de buen gusto habla que le pase a nadie, y menos pues al más grande de todos los tiempos. Y bueno, desde luego es un tema que va a tener que tratar, y sobre todo en un momento también de su carrera que era, bueno, pues que estaba a punto tal vez de anunciarse su futura capitanía para la Ryder Cup de Adare Manor. Estaban hablando, bueno, como sabes, es parte del comité de futuros torneos del PGA Tour. No sé a ti qué te parece. Tú lo estás viviendo desde Estados Unidos, que me imagino, si aquí se están haciendo eco en Estados Unidos, me imagino que enciendes el telediario o el Gold Channel y tal, y no se hablará de otra cosa.
Bueno, aquí por un lado se habla de cuáles van a ser las siguientes consecuencias de esto, porque esto no se ha acabado. O sea, él tendrá un juicio ahora y tendrá que responder y bueno, hay cierto miedo en ese sentido. Está Trump que tuitea que ya ha llamado al oficial de turno a decirle que por favor que lo dejen en paz y que lo perdonen con efecto inmediato porque se tiene que concentrar en el Masters. Ya sé que es tu colega, pero lo de Trump de verdad que va comprando números para no sé, no ganar las siguientes elecciones, no sé, pero realmente es bastante cómico el asunto. Yo creo que es un tema muy grave, creo que Tiger tiene que darle, o sea, primero vamos a ver qué pasa, pero segundo tiene que darle una vuelta. Oye, si los medicamentos o las pastillas o los painkillers o la marihuana, lo que cojones sea, pero de verdad que te lleve a alguien, tío, porque realmente hay ciertas cosas que no se pueden consentir, pero no solo para tu integridad física, sino, pues, como muy bien dices, para la de los demás. Gracias a Dios, pues no se estrelló contra nadie, no pasaba nadie por allá y no ha ido a mayores, pero esto podría haber sido una tragedia mucho más grave de lo que ha sido. Con lo cual
Sí, sobre todo que yo creo que es que llevamos tantos años enfocados en su carrera deportiva, ¿no? En si va a reaparecer, si va a volver a jugar y tal. Yo creo que nos estamos olvidando, pues eso, de lo más importante, que es en su caso bueno, pues después de rehabilitarse, de curarse y de llevar una vida normal y que acabe su legado, pues eso, siendo el que es y recordándole como el que era, ¿no? O sea, no puede acabar tu carrera o ser recordado por estas mierdas, llamémoslo así. Pero bueno, la verdad es que es una auténtica pena. Me imagino que no le veremos en Augusta la semana que viene. Estaba previsto que fuese, seguía inscrito entre comillas, porque ahí no te inscribes, ahí lo que te puedes es borrar. Si estás... Él estaba como past champion, obviamente, está en la lista, todavía no se ha borrado, pero sí que tenía previsto ir ahí porque inauguraba, ha hecho un campo, Augusta ha hecho un campo de pares 3 que se llama The Patch, que lo ha diseñado Tiger en las afueras y demás, y tenía previsto ir a inaugurarlo, pero bueno, no se sabe ahora mismo, no se sabe nada, no dicen nada. Y veremos, yo no creo que ni mucho menos juegue. Me sorprendería mucho. Es verdad que apareció la semana pasada en la liga esta indoor TGL y que, bueno, no lo hizo del todo mal, pero bueno, no se sabe nada de si jugará o no jugará. Pero bueno, desde luego la mala nota o la nota discordante de este fin de semana, que habían pasado tantas cosas buenas. ¿Sabes otra cosa buena que ha pasado este fin de semana, Larry? Que el COI anunció que los nacidos hombres no van a poder formar parte de las competiciones femeninas. Sentido común, o sea, una cosa, ¿sabes? Lo que suele ser el antiguo sentido común que ahora parece tan raro, pues eso es. Así que por lo menos nos vamos a ahorrar Manolos compitiendo y quitándole su sitio a las señoras de turno. Así que nada, ese era mi apunte del día. Por cierto, y una cosa más. Y hay un nuevo tour creado por Grant Howard y los hermanos Bryan, un Your Golf Tour para creadores de contenido, Larry, donde jugarán por $1 millón. No sé si somos dignos todavía de semejante tour.
Gonzalo, te lo he dicho por activa y por pasiva. Necesitamos un manager que nos meta en la pomada, tío.
Sí, necesitamos empezar a dar bolas. Pero yo creo que sería interesante.
Yo más bolas no puedo dar, que me desmonto, que yo entreno como un loco, ¿no?
Necesitamos empezar a dar bolas. Pero bueno, yo me gustaría que me hicieras una pequeña previa de lo que viene esta semana, que sabes que en Europa no hay torneos, ni en los hombres ni las mujeres. Esta semana tenemos el Valero Texas Open, el Aramco en el LPGA en Vegas, pero sobre todo tenemos el Angua, y tú vas a estar ahí de coach, de caddy, de todo. Bueno, ya estás ahí, así que haznos un pequeño preview y que entre nuestro director general.
Bueno, pues por aquí hoy era el primer día de entreno, no entreno, pues no se podía jugar al campo.
¿Y qué se hace el día de entreno, no entreno? ¿Das bolas y
Me
paseas?
dejan ir ahí a dar bolas, a pasear, a puchar, poco más. La verdad que es un torneo realmente espectacular, como lo montan. Para que te hagas una idea, es un torneo amateur. Están todos los camiones de todas las marcas en el campo de prácticas. El display es absolutamente increíble. Es un torneo que, bueno, un poco como el Masters, ¿eh? Son 70 participantes, solo 30 extranjeras. Ahí yo creo que el field podría ser un poco más potente. Bueno, obviamente las mejores están, pero bueno, pues eso, ¿no? Que los americanos se cuidan muy mucho de que haya mucho americano y que estén todas, y las extranjeras que se lo monten como puedan. Pero creo que el trato a la jugadora es espectacular. Paula en particular está todo en orden, todo entrenado. Y con muchísimas ganas de empezar, con muchísimas ganas de no cagarla por mi parte, por la parte que me toca, y dejar que su juego fluya. Y bueno, la previsión del tiempo hace un par de días era muy, muy mala. Ahora va mejorando un poco, pero sí que va a llover. Creo que va a llover el sábado y va a llover el domingo, que eso para el Masters pues no sé si va a ser muy bueno. Pero bueno, con muchas ganas, Gonzalo, ya estoy aquí al lado, ya puedo olisquear las azaleas, y la verdad que muy contento de estar aquí, con mucha responsabilidad, pero con mucho excitement, por no decir excitación, porque la gente lo interpreta de otra manera, de tener esta oportunidad de volver a pisar Augusta, de volver a sentir esa energía. Creo que es un sitio muy especial y una semana increíble para disfrutar.
Bueno, os deseamos la mejor de las suertes. Recordar, corrígeme si me equivoco, 4 las españolas que participan.
4 españolas. Andrea Revuelta, está también Rocío Tejedo y Cayetana Fernández, así que cuatro ases que tenemos en la manga para llevarnos otra vez este prestigioso torneo.
Pues el año pasado ganó Carla Bernat, este año pues que sea una de esas 4 y si puede ser pues nuestro amigo Larry, un vestidito de blanco, verte ahí por las calles de Augusta, nos haría mucha ilusión el domingo. Es verdad que es un formato curioso porque jugáis primero en un campo, luego un día de entrenamiento en Augusta y luego juegan todas, aunque hayan fallado el corte, y luego el último día las que han pasado el corte en Augusta. Es verdad que el formato, yo creo que el formato es mejorable. Pero bueno, ¿quién soy yo para decirle a los señores de Augusta National?
El formato es mejorable, pero
Se lo digo, cambien el formato, que es una mierda.
El segundo campo, donde juegan las 2 primeras vueltas, es otro campazo. Es verdad que molaría mucho más jugar las 3 o hipotéticas 4 vueltas en Augusta.
Si a mí lo que se me hace raro es la ronda, el día en blanco. A mí lo que se me hace raro es el día en blanco. O sea, es lo que se me hace raro. A mí que jueguen en Champions Retreat y luego se vayan a Augusta no me disgusta. O sea,
bueno, yo creo que hay un par de razones muy importantes para ello. Yo creo que obviamente las que no pasan el corte, pues dejar que conozcan Augusta y que jueguen ahí creo que es especial. Y luego que la hierba de los greens, sobre todo la hierba en general de Augusta y del Champions Retreat es distinta, con lo cual empalar, ¿sabes? Empalar de un campo al otro sin entreno.
Ok, vale, pues ya está, ¿ves? Esa es la explicación que yo necesitaba, ya está. Con eso me basta. Larry, tráeme un libro bonito de Augusta, de la historia, tal, algo así. Vale.
Voy a ir a la tienda y voy a intentar además colarme en la de... Bueno, colarme o que alguien me invite. No sé, voy a coger, pues no sé, a Nika Sorenstam, que la conozco, o algún socio por ahí, a ver si me...
A ver, ¿cómo que conoces a Nika Sorenstam y no la has traído Gol sin etiquetas? ¿Desde cuándo conoces a Nika Sorenstam y a mí no me has dicho nada?
La conozco de que el año pasado, por ejemplo, que la vi, que iba con la chaquetita verde, la fui a saludar y por alguna casualidad ya la había saludado en el pasado y sabía quién era o realmente lo hizo muy bien, ¿no? Es una gran actriz.
Me gusta.
Alguna enredaré para que me meta en la tienda de los socios que mola más. Pero vale. Te traeré algo, te traeré algún libro de...
Tráeme a Nika Sorenstam, olvídate del libro. Tráeme a Nika Sorenstam a Gol sin etiquetas, ¿te parece?
Y luego es muy español esto, pero aquí en el hotel, por todo el lobby y por todas las zonas comunes, en cada mesita que hay, este año han puesto un libro. Y he visto unos librazos ahí de puta madre. He tenido como la tentación de llevarme alguno para leer y que, oye, que se me olvide devolverlo, porque hay libros muy interesantes, Gonzalo. Pero esto es muy de español cutre, ¿sabes? Muy de la...
Nosotros somos español cutre de toda la vida, o sea que hazte con ellos. Pero bueno, que venga nuestro director general y dé su opinión a ver si Annika Sorenstam tendría que estar aquí o no. El micrófono, don Ignacio, que van 2 semanas consecutivas.
Mira que me lo quito, perdón, mira que me lo quito antes para no molestar, pero luego, mira, se me olvida. Que sí, por supuesto, Annika tiene que estar. O sea, hemos dejado el listón bastante alto con Lorena Ochoa, pero creo que Annika, ojito, ojito Annika.
Oye, acabo de caer que no hemos hecho momento Aquadeus. De pronto se me acaba de venir a la mente y se me acaba de venir a la mente también que vas a pasar un mal rato esta semana haciendo cortos de las respuestas de Claude, porque yo no he visto, o sea, es imposible, un corto, o sea, cada respuesta...
Son largometrajes, quieres decir.
Son largometrajes.
No van a ser cortometrajes, van a ser largometrajes.
O de cada respuesta puedes sacar 5 cortos, pero vamos... lo estaba pensando, según contestaba, digo, Pinedín lo va a pasar esta semana mal para hacer cortos, pero... Pinedín, momento Aquadeus, lo hemos dejado para el final, pero es verdad que lo bueno se hace esperar. ¿Traes uno o tenemos que improvisar?
Yo te he dado uno, pero para la entrevista, pero ahora ya no. Pero venga, lo ponemos y contestarlo vosotros, ese que yo he propuesto, contestarlo vosotros como si fuerais Profesor Harmon.
A ver.
Venga.
¿Qué significa para mí el agua? El agua lo es todo. Es fuerza, es respeto, es equilibrio. Es la mezcla del origen con la evolución. El agua es mi vida.
Pues aquí revisando el chat, revisando el chat, veo la pregunta que teníamos para Claude, que era si hubieses cambiado alguno de tus medios como entrenador por entrenar a Tiger.
Los dos sois entrenadores, por lo tanto, ¿qué creéis que o que hubierais hecho vosotros si hubierais sido entrenadores, que lo sois, de éxito, habéis tenido majors con vuestros jugadores, pero vuestro padre ha entrenado a Tiger probablemente muchos de sus años de su prime? ¿Hubierais cambiado vuestros majors por entrenar a Tiger?
Yo creo que el libro de Han Hani sobre Tiger lo deja clarísimo. Cuando se le presentó la oportunidad de entrenar a Tiger, dijo que, bueno, que Tiger, o sea, que hubiese dejado cualquier cosa en su vida por entrenar a Tiger y que no podía haber un jugador después de él. Yo creo que entrenar a Tiger en su prime tuvo que ser una experiencia intergaláctica. Pero...
Fíjate, yo voy más allá. Yo voy más allá y me remito a una de las cosas que nos contaba Claude, que me ha parecido súper interesante. Que muchas cosas de las que él cuenta y a sus alumnos son cosas que ha aprendido él de sus antiguos alumnos, de grandes como, bueno, pues de muchos de a los que ha dado clases y de otros a los que no ha dado clases, que a lo mejor estaba de oyente cuando su padre les daba clases. Entonces yo creo que yo entrenaría a Tiger, incluso a día de hoy, cuando ya no sabe, aunque no puede caminar o no puede hacer eso, solamente por ser capaz de mantener conversaciones con él y que te cuente pues lo que él entiende del swing, cómo hace este golpe, cómo hace el otro. Eso yo creo que es oro puro. Que a lo mejor pues es como cuando la Chema te explica cómo aprovechar o cómo patear. O sea, cada maestrillo tiene su librillo y hay veces esas cosas que son tan particulares que son muy difíciles de replicar, pero simplemente poder compartir tiempo con Tiger y aprender bueno, pues de uno de los más grandes, yo sin duda lo cambiaba no por uno, sino por dos majors.
Claro, no, yo decía todos. Haber cambiado tus majors por entrenar a Tiger. O sea,
haber llevado un chaval, imagínate, un Trevor Immelman, por ejemplo, haberle cogido, no te voy a decir desde pequeño, porque no es el caso, a lo mejor como ha hecho Randy Smith u otros entrenadores, con Randy Smith con Scotty Scheffler, otros entrenadores, pero de pronto coger un jugador y ver que va evolucionando, llevarlo a las grandes citas y de pronto ver que consigue, que hace realidad su sueño, ¿no? Que me imagino que en el caso de Trevor pues sería ganar la chaqueta verde. A lo mejor era el British Open, no lo sé, pero bueno, o sea, el ser partícipe de ese viaje debe ser absolutamente extraordinario. No sé si los cambiaría todos, pero bueno, yo creo que obviamente trabajar con el más grande debe ser único.
Vale, ok, bueno, pues ha quedado claro. Ahora, si os parece, vamos con el juego. Que, bueno, el de la semana pasada me sirvió para que estuvierais atentos.
Estoy en racha, o sea, yo ahora mismo estoy como chacarra en el hoyo 17, o sea, vengo de hacer 3 bogies y Larry viene como Fitzpatrick haciendo verdis como una bestia en el tema de los juegos.
Estoy intratable. No me hagas apuntar, Pinedín, porque
no, tranquilo. Va a ser otra vez juego de pistas, pero bueno, la semana pasada tuvimos a Carlos Pillem simplemente para haceros estar un poco atentos de que aquí vale un poco todo.
Es que ¿vale? hoy nos saca una Ana Peláez y me queda a cuadros, claro. Que por cierto ha ganado esta semana en el Santander Tour. Ahí queda eso. Nuestra Ana Peláez, que ha estado por aquí en Gol Sin Etiquetas, una grande. Por cierto, ha puesto un vídeo en Instagram haciendo gimnasia, está cuadrada. Joder. Pero absolutamente cuadrada. Pinedín, lo que te pido, por favor, para la gente que nos escucha y no nos ve, que vayas contando un poco las pistas que vas poniendo.
Sí. Vale, pues a ver, hay varias de foto, ¿vale? Entonces, como siempre, pues empezamos con una ciudad, a ver si no me equivoco de foto y os adelanto pistas.
No sabía ni que era Lérida, o sea, imagínate.
Bueno, esto por lo menos España no es.
Vale, pues esto es una ciudad, tampoco podemos dar muchas pistas, pero esta es una ciudad, ¿vale? La segunda pista es esta.
Una universidad.
Una universidad, pero no sabemos qué puñetas es. Muy bonita, por cierto. No será Stanford, tú has estado por Stanford, no será eso Stanford.
No, yo no he estado en Stanford todavía.
Pues mira, puede
es un edificio muy característico, ¿eh?
Ok.
Vale, pero bueno, se verá a los chavales con las mochilas,
sí.
esas cosas.
Está claro que son estudiantes.
Está claro que es una universidad, ¿no? Vale. La tercera es esta. El señor Tiger y el señor o señorito Charlie.
Padres e hijos. Me gusta. Vamos a ver.
Chocando el puñito. ¿Vale?
Vale. O sea, tengo cero idea ahora mismo. No sé la ciudad.
Yo tengo una idea muy clara, pero y no me sale el nombre, pero sé quién es. Dime.
Vale.
Monstruo.
Vale. La siguiente es: ganó un Major sin haber terminado dentro del top 10 en greens en regulación esa semana, que es un grupo muy reducido de jugadores.
Joder, qué mierda de pista.
Para quieto.
¿Ha ganado más majors o es el único que gana?
¿Esto qué es? Las pistas las doy yo. No, aquí no hay más preguntas.
Sin estar. Joder.
¿Cómo se llama este man, tío? ¡Oh!
¿Cómo se llamaba este man? Continúa, Pinedín, no se la sabe.
Larry, ¿qué? ¿Seguimos?
No, pero es que necesito saber el man que yo tengo en mente, necesito saber el nombre, que no me sale, tío. Bueno, ya me saldrá, va, tira.
Vale. La quinta pista es noveno reserva.
John. No, ese no es de la universidad. ¿Qué va a ir a la universidad, John Daly? Ah, no, es Arkansas la que me has enseñado. Padres e hijos.
A ver, que es noveno reserva.
John Daly.
Correcto.
John Daly. No, John Daly, ¿cuál?
Pues
bueno, si
John
gana un
Daly, sí,
Major.
o sea,
Coño, si gana un Major, no va a ser el hijo.
Vamos nomás, ¿cómo te la he levantado?
¿Por qué noveno?
Porque en el PGA que gana, estaba noveno reserva al principio de la semana y acaba entrando y conduce por la noche y llega sin practicar. Sí. Año 91, si mal no recuerdo.
Eso es.
¿Cómo te la he levantado, Larry? Approach y pad a lo John Daly.
Sí.
Te la he levantado en el último minuto.
Luego quedaban dos pistas.
A ver,
que una era esta.
Constantino Roca San Andrews 95. Me gusta.
Efectivamente. Y ya la última ya era esta.
Sí, esta era muy gráfica. Si pones un Hooters, también nos hubiéramos, un camión de esto de Hooters, también nos hubiéramos enterado.
Entonces, esta es la ciudad, que es Carmichael, que es donde nació, California.
La típica foto de Carmichael que hemos visto toda la vida.
Exacto. Universidad de Arkansas.
Él fue a Arkansas. Yo sé que su hijo va a Arkansas, pero él también fue a Arkansas.
Él también fue a Arkansas, sí.
Qué bárbaro, yo pensé que no sabía ni leer.
Sí. De hecho, cuando has dicho John, ¿qué coño va a abrir a la universidad? Digo, ojo, que
sabía que el niño iba a Arkansas, pero no.
El torneo de padres e hijos es porque en 2021 lo ganaron y ganaron a estos dos muchachos. O sea, esta foto es del 2021.
No, esta foto ha sido muy indicativa, es decir.
Es que, claro,
pues
me alegro que vuelvas al Winner Circle porque te veía muy bajito últimamente.
Sí. Ha estado bien. Oye, nos hemos pasado de 2 horas. Esto ha sido un disparate, pero bueno, es lo que hay.
Es que la entrevista solo creo que ha sido 1 hora 25.
No, ha sido brutal. La verdad es que a mí me ha divertido mucho. Es verdad que lo sentimos para los que no hablan inglés. Pero bueno, en 2 días, y bueno, cuando la subamos a YouTube, estará subtitulada. YouTube te la traduce y te la subtitula. Pero bueno, es que yo
verdad
creo
que los subtítulos no pillas todo, pero sí te haces una gran idea de todo el contexto y tal. O sea, a lo mejor algún chascarrillo, alguna broma, algo así.
Yo sobre todo lo que creo es que es una pena que nos perdamos este tipo de personalidades del golf a las que gracias a Dios tenemos acceso y que yo creo que tienen cosas muy interesantes que contar a expensas de poder traducir la entrevista o no hacerla, o ¿sabes? Porque yo creo que si esta misma entrevista encima vamos haciendo traducción simultánea es que se nos va el programa a 3 horas en vez de 2. Entonces, bueno, se hace lo que se puede, ya nos vamos quedando sin invitados de habla hispana, los seguimos buscando, a no ser que Anika Sorenstam. Pregúntale a Anika Sorenstam si habla español, Larry, ese es tu objetivo.
Si la veo el sábado, la invitaré a Gol Sin Etiquetas a ver qué dice.
Bueno,
me andará paseo, pero bueno.
Larry, desde aquí, desde Madrid, Pinedín y yo te deseamos mucha suerte en esta.
Trae un enano, Larry, de esos. O sea, yo no quiero un libro, yo quiero un enano de esos que.
Es que no te puedo traer un enano porque es que no tengo sitio para meterlo. O sea.
Maleta de el enano vas con bajo el brazo. Además, los enanos, luego los enanos se revalorizan.
Se revalorizan.
Tú además que llegas de los primeros porque estás ahí el sábado, te compras el enano y luego eso lo revendemos en Wallapop. Tráete un enano para Gol sin etiquetas. Vamos a regalar un enano firmado. Un enano firmado. Yo siempre he querido tener un enano.
No te equivoques de enano, por favor. A ver si...
Además, el de este año es muy chulo, como con un paraguas que... sí.
Yo siempre he querido tener un enano con paraguas. Hasta ahí puedo leer.
No, tú guíes un libro. El enano sería para Pineín,
Bueno, pues tráete 2 enanos.
Tráete 2 enanos.
No,
uno para mí y el otro
cada
para
persona solo puede comprar uno.
Ah, coño. Bueno, pues Paulita compra el otro.
Paulita compra el otro.
Claro.
Y la familia de Paulita otro. Tráeme todos los enanos que puedas, que me divierte.
Tráenos un ejército de enanos.
No, los 7 enanitos, por lo menos 7, para tener 7 enanitos. Es lo que toca. Pero bueno, Larry, Pinedín, mil gracias por estar otro lunes más aquí al pie del cañón. Y a nuestros etiquetes por aguantarnos 2 horas y 5 de programa ahora mismo. Así que con esto cortamos. Que tengáis una buena semana pre-master, semana de Angua. Nos vemos el lunes que viene. Arreglen sus piques y rastrillen los bunkers.
Buenas noches.
Chicos.